Hello, I'm Anthony Zoller, and this is the Employment Law Report. And today I'm going to be discussing the new regulations taking effect April 1st, 2016, put out by California's Fair Employment and Housing Council. The new regulations that just took effect April 1st require employers to take a look at their current policies and handbooks to see if they should update their policies in order to comply with the new regulations. Now, the new regulations aren't necessarily a new law. They do, for the most part, track existing law, but there are some new requirements that the regulations are putting forward that should give employers a pause and definitely make them take a second look at what their current policies are to see if they comply with these new regulations. So basically, in addition to handing out the DFEH's brochure on sexual harassment, the new regulations require employers to have a written policy about harassment. Now, this is a new requirement. It didn't have to be in writing before this, and the written policy also has to comply with a few other requirements. It has to be in writing. It has to list some of the all of the protected categories under the law that an employer can't retaliate or discriminate against an employee, and also the different protected categories that protect employees from harassment based on those categories. And also the written policy needs to set out a complaint procedure for the employee to follow, and the policy has to have certain requirements set out in writing that the complaint is going to be effectively looked at quickly, that the company will take remedial action, and that the employee won't be retaliated against, among other things. It's important that the employers review what the new regulations require in order to ensure that their written policy complies with all of the new requirements. In addition to having the complaint process set out in writing, the employer's policy also needs to set forth that any supervisor that receives a complaint from an employee is obligated to report that to the human resources or other personnel in the company in order to start the investigation and effectively deal with the complaint. This requirement that supervisors must report any complaints of misconduct to the appropriate personnel is also a new requirement that must be in the sexual harassment training that supervisors and managers must receive every 2 years. It's a different topic. I don't want to get into too much detail of that right now, but this new regulation has also explained some of those other requirements and put some new requirements on employers in regards to that sexual harassment training that is required if you have 50 or more employees within the company. Also, the new regulations require that the written policy that the employers are now obligated to put forth to the employees will ensure that the complaint is confidential, kept confidential to the amount that it can be kept confidential, and also that the employee won't be exposed to any retaliation for making a complaint. So now the new regulations, the one new element that's introduced in the regulations require the employer to disseminate the new policy, and if it's given to employees in a written format, there is contemplated in the regulations that the employee signs off on an acknowledgement that they received the new policy and understand the policy. The regulations also allow for the employer to disseminate the new policy electronically and sets out how the employer should do that. But the major takeaway on the dissemination of this new written policy, this new requirement that the employer have this written policy, is that it seems to be that the regulations require some type of authorization from the employee that they actually received the policy and understand the policy. Now, finally, the regulations also require if 10% or more of the workforce within a particular establishment or within the company speak a different language other than English, the regulations require that the employer translate the policy and provide that policy in that other language for the employees. So this is a pretty big development for employers to take a look at. And again, it's effective April 1st, 2016. So I am recommending all of the California employers take a look at their current policy to make sure it complies with these new regulations that just came out. Now I'll have a link below in regards so you can read the regulation yourself. This is just a quick overview. There are some other requirements set out in the regulations that employers should take a look at. But this video is just a quick update on the new requirements and to give notice to employees that it's something that they should take a look at and review with counsel as soon as possible. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me, and thanks for watching.